just so that we are in full understanding. All right? All right, very good. All right, what I would like you to do is to go to verse 7. If we could read verse 7.
Hosea chapter 12, verse 7. He is a merchant. The balances of deceit are in his hand. He loveth to oppress.
All right, let's find a precept for that. Let's go to Deuteronomy 22 and 11. And for those of you that have your mobile phones, please put them on silent or switch them off if you would be so kind, so we have no interruptions during the service. All right, Deuteronomy 22 and 11, let's read.
The book of Deuteronomy, chapter 22, verse 11. Thou shalt not wear a garment of divers sorts, as a woolen of linen together.
Let's read it again.
Deuteronomy chapter 22, verse 11. Thou shalt not wear a garment of divers sorts, as a woolen and linen together.
All right, can anyone explain to me what does that mean? What is it implying? What is it describing to us?
You can't be what do you mean 22:11, right?
That's right.
Correct.
You're skating the fence. Be one way or the other. Don't be all wool instead of having part wool or part cotton or part polyester.
All right. Anyone else? Anyone else?
Yes, thou shalt not wear a garment of divers, which means diverse garment. We have different diverse, whether it be if you're a man, don't wear a lady's clothes, and if you're a lady, don't wear man clothes. And diverse, I guess, of the first cultures, because we tend to see other people and we want to gravitate toward what they're wearing.
All right, let's go to a scripture. Let's go to Leviticus 19 and 19 real quick. Let's read.
Leviticus chapter 19, verse 19. Ye shall keep my statutes.
Say that again.
Ye shall keep my statutes.
So the scripture says that we must keep his statutes. So there is a statute or statute that reflects to not wearing the mixture of garments in terms of wool with leather and so on and so on. It is only here in Babylon that it has become commonplace to wear a mixture of garments and think nothing of it. But read what Leviticus 19 and 19 says again.
Leviticus chapter 19, verse 19. Ye shall keep my statutes. Thou shalt not let thy cattle gender with a diverse kind. Thou shalt not sow thy field with mingled seed. Neither shall a garment mingled of linen and woolen come upon thee.
Read.
Verse 20. And whosoever lieth carnally with a woman that is a bondmaid, betrothed to a husband, and not at all redeemed, nor freedom given her, she shall be scourged. They shall not be put to death, because she was not free.
All right, jump back to verse 13. Just read the first clause of that.
Leviticus chapter 19, verse 13. Thou shalt not defraud thy neighbor.
Stop, jump down to verse 15.
Verse 15. Ye shall do no unrighteousness in judgment. Thou shalt not respect the person of the poor, nor honor the person of the mighty.
Jump to 16.
Verse 16. Thou shalt not go up and down as a table bearer among thy people, neither shalt thou stand against the blood of thy neighbor.
All right. So we see that these are the different statutes of the scriptures. Everything, I mean, there's obviously more, but we just read a few of them so that we could keep our mind clear as to what the scripture is saying. Let's read 19 again, just the first clause.
Leviticus chapter 19, verse 19. He shall keep my statutes.
Keep his statutes. And one of those statutes is we do not mingle seed, we do not mix garments.
That's right.
Now, let's go back and let's read, where were we? We were
Hosea?
Yes, go back to Hosea.
Hosea 12 and 4.
12 and 7.
Yes, sir. Hosea chapter 12, verse 7. He is a merchant. The branches of deceit are in his hand.
Now, when it said he is a merchant, just so that we're clear, this is speaking about those who are from Africa. Because the Africans back in that time, or the so-called Africans as we call them today, they were the great merchants who traveled all over in terms of their merchandising. So you want to make a note of that. And just to pull a point, in fact, let's finish read 7 again.
Yes, sir. Hosea chapter 12, verse 7. He is a merchant. The balances of deceit are in his hand. He loveth to oppress.
All right. So we use the term African, but back then they used the term Canaanites. All right. So jump down, if you please, to verse 9.
Verse 9. And I that am the Lord thy God, from the land of Egypt, will yet make thee to dwell in tabernacles, as in the days of the solemn feast.
All right, from there I want you to go to Psalm 106 and 20.
106 and 20. The book of Psalms, chapter 106, verse 20. Thus they changed their glory into the similitude of an ox that eateth grass.
Read that one more time.
Thus they changed their glory into the similitude of an ox that eateth grass.
So what does that mean, ladies and gentlemen? Right, whilst you're thinking that out, let's go to the book of, go back to Hosea, chapter 12. I want you to read 9 and 10.
12, 9, and 10.
Yep. And then explain to me what we just read in the book of Psalms.
The book of Hosea, chapter 12, verse 9. And I, that am the Lord thy God, from the land of Egypt, will yet make thee to dwell in tabernacles, as in the days of the solemn feast.
Read.
I have also spoken by the prophets.
I've spoken by the prophets. Go on.
And I have multiplied visions.
Multiplied the visions, in other words, the things that will soon come to pass. Read.
And use similitudes.
And use what?
Similitudes.
Similitudes. Go on.
By the ministry of the prophets.
By the ministry of the prophets. In other words, by the hand of the prophets. All right. So, go back to Psalms 106 and 20, and let's put it all together.
Yes, sir.
Let us read.
Psalms chapter 106, verse 20. Thus they changed their glory into the similitude of an ox that eateth grass.
What does that mean, ladies and gentlemen? They changed their what?
Their glory.
Their glory to what?
Into the similitude of an ox.
So the similitude means the likeness of an ox.
Was it like their power, Master? The glory means power.
Yes.
And then it's like they made like the Edomites, they always have the eagles and stars, and that means that what I'm getting at is that they symbolize.
No, not that.
Not that?
No, not that. You're right when it comes to power. Glory represents their power. But they likened it, changed it to the liken of what?
An ox.
An ox. Why?
It's okay, like an ox, right? An ox, it's you don't worry about what you're gonna eat the next day. Like everything comes to it. So
That's good, but an ox does one primary thing.
okay.
He's a worker.
Labor.
Yeah, he's a worker.
Labor. It's a worker. So read it again for me, please.
Psalms chapter 106, verse 20. Thus they changed their glory.
They changed their glory. They changed their power.
That's right.
Read.
Into the similitude.
Into what?
Into the similitude.
Into the similitude
of an ox.
of an ox. In other words, we as the Most High's people, we are considered to be glorious, powerful people. The reasons why you don't see that, or even some people don't even believe that today, is because we are at the bottom.
Right.
We're not the ones at the top. But according to the scripture, it is speaking parenthetically into the future that the people of the Most High will become those who are going to be the most powerful people on earth. Now, I've heard the saying, and I mean not to insult anyone. You've heard the expression about the Aryan nation, right?
Yes.
What does that mean?
Aryan? Or
Yeah, when they said the Aryan nation, what does that mean?
Well, it would come to mind, it gets off mind. Mostly why I hear them when they're the people who invaded India. And Aryan is sort of like a Aryan Germanic race of people.
They're Germanic,
You're right.
but what are they known for?
A group.
They're a group, they're a hate group. What are they known for?
They call themselves the purest race.
They call themselves what?
The purest race?
They're a puritanical race, yes, but what are they known for?
Deceit.
What did Hitler liken them to be? Yes, they were gods because
Pure race.
they're what?
Pure race.
They were
He said Nazi.
they were Nazis,
Liken them to a pure race.
more on a pure race,
Aryan.
but an Aryan, meaning what? Because they were built up. What do you say?
Master race.
The master race.
That's what they would say.
Now, the reason why I want you to get that, because you have been taught that there's no such thing.
We are.
Is that right? You've been taught that there's no such thing as a master race.
Yes, sir.
But that's not true. There is.
So,
Deuteronomy chapter 7 and 6.
that's right.
And then we're going to go into the lesson with just a couple of brief things. All right? Let's read.
The book of Deuteronomy, chapter 7, verse 6. For thou art an holy people.
Thou art what?
For thou art an holy people.
A holy people. Go on.
Unto the Lord thy God.
Unto the Lord our Yah.
The Lord thy God hath chosen thee to be a special people.
So he says that we have been chosen
Yes.
to be a special people.
That's right.
You're reading this from the scriptures. This is the type of word that we have not been taught in the Sunday go to church services.
That's right.
And the reasons why it's difficult for them to teach that there is because in the so-called Sunday church, everyone is there. Every race is there. And how is the preacher going to tell the people who are Israel, who don't know they're Israel, that you're Israel, you are a master race?
That's right.
How do you think that's going to make the other people feel that's sitting around them? They're going to be embarrassed, they're going to be insulted, and some, I dare say, will get up and leave the service. But remember, the Bible tells us in the book of Psalms 83 that we are his hidden ones. We have been hidden away. In fact, the scripture goes on to tell us in the book of both Galatians and Ephesians that we are the mystery. Because nobody knows who you are. Everything about who you are has been kept secret. But what we've just read here in Deuteronomy, chapter what?
Deuteronomy chapter 7, verse 6.
Read.
For thou art an holy people.
You are a holy people. You may not be holy now because you're going through some stuff.
That's right.
Some of you are not even woken up yet. You're still sleeping. You're still in this sleeping dead life that you walk around thinking you're like everybody, but you are not according to the scriptures.
Sunken place.
Say it again, Doctor.
The sunken place.
You're in that sunken place.
That's right.
You have been hypnotized.
That's right.
That's good. I'm going to remember that. Go on.
The Lord thy God hath chosen thee to be a special people.
To be what?
To be a special people.
He says to be a special people
unto himself.
Unto himself.
Above all people that are.
Hold it. Is that with other people?
Above all people.
He says above all people. Read.
That are upon the face of the earth.
They're upon the face of the earth. That's a hard pill to swallow.
Yes, it is.
Let's go to Deuteronomy chapter 10 and 15. I know we normally go to 14 and 2, but I want to go to 10 and 15. Let us read.
Deuteronomy chapter 14.
Verse 15. 10 and 15.
Chapter 10, verse 15. Still going. Only the Lord had a delight in thy fathers to love them, and he chose their seed.
And chose what?
He chose their seed.
He chose our father's seed. Read.
After them, even you above all people, as it is this day.
So from that day to this, he said he has chosen you above all people, as it is this day. So it has never changed from the time that it has been said to where we are today. It has never been changed.
That's right.
You see that?
Yes, sir.
All right. We'll stop there. Any questions on that before we go any further? Give me some up-to-date news. Can anyone give me any up-to-date news of what's going on generally around the world? Anyone has anything?
North Korea is, they're starting to build their missiles and bombs again.
Oh, say that, who?
Is it North Korea or South Korea?
North Korea.
They're starting to, they've discovered that they've reestablished their platform where they're building their missiles again.
Right, yes.
And Russia is, I guess, becoming more obvious in their deceit as well, in their plans.
Right.
They're financing a lot of corrupt other countries to continue to do some things that are evil against people.
Right. Let me just explain what she just said, that North Korea, they've now gone back into the reassembling of their nuclear power. They're going to be the next superpower before the coming of the Most High, that we will see start to go into emergence, along with Russia, etc. And Russia has been supporting them. But remember, Russia right now has been showing its strength. And so the rest of the world is wondering what's going to happen, because if North Korea and Russia becomes ally along with India, it changes the balance of power. And so all these things are happening, and one of the things that's happened over in the UK at this time is that if you travel on a train, they now have immigration checks on trains and on coaches leaving one city to another. So it's got to that point in the UK right now. If you catch a coach from here to, say, New York, for instance, there's going to be an immigration check there. If you catch a plane from here to LA, there's going to be an immigration check there. So that's the type of thing that's happening right now in the UK. So with that in mind, you're going to see similar things start to take place here. And it's going to change the whole dynamics of what this country is about. This country, like other countries, are moving into a military state.
Yes, it is.
And you're going to see it. And for those who are skeptics and acting like, oh, well, that's just a phase, it's going to change your future life. All right, any other questions before
Yes,
we go? Go
one
ahead.
of the thoughts that since you're talking about that, starting in 2023, you're going to have a visa to visit any European country now. And
That's already in action. Any country that you go to, you have to have a visa. It's going to be more commonplace for an American than any other country, or that's been in implementation for years. You cannot travel throughout Europe without a visa.
Wow.
I could not come to this country without a visa.
Oh, I thought it was American, they said.
No, but now they're going to have it that Americans, remember, America had the free way to go wherever they wanted. It's not the case. Americans have to have a visa to go anywhere, otherwise you're out.
And something else that caught my attention is with this lady here. She's a freshman congressman, Ilhan Omar, and it kind of touched on. She was saying that they called her attacking Obama. She was saying that Obama was really worse than Trump. He's doing the same thing, he's just a little bit more polished and everything. And so it was kind of eye-opener that she said the drones he started attacking people, killing people. So I thought that was just something different than what you hear from the national media.
Well, remember, although Obama was the so-called first black president, Obama did nothing for the so-called African American. We got happy about it, but he did nothing. If anything, he put you 10 steps backwards. Now, people don't want to say it because people are embarrassed because he's our first black president, but you must remember, ladies and gentlemen, he's not you. He's Ham. You are Shem. You see, we've got to this mindset, we've been miseducated to believe that everything that is so-called black, we're all the same. We're not all the same.
No.
You look at a Chinese person, and you say that they're all the same, they will get upset with you. Because they will say, I'm Japanese, and I'm Chinese, I'm Malaysian, I'm Indonesian. You see, they'll get upset because they recognize there's a difference between them. But we tend to put all blackness into the same pot and say we're all the same. We're not. Because there are certain Africans, which are Hamites, the Bible calls them Canaanites, they don't like Americans.
That's right.
So don't get it twisted. When you think they love you, they don't like Americans. And if I'm offending anyone in here, tough. Because that's what it is in this present day and age. They do not like Americans. Go ahead.
We are live, by the way.
I'm sorry?
We're live, and there's a comment online that says the demonstration of the Hebrew Israelites is beginning to high gear. There's the demonstration of the Hebrew Israelites coming to the main focus.
Yes. The Hebrew Israelite is now becoming more mainstream than it was before. And what we have to do, this is why it is important that we rule ourselves and govern ourselves decently and in order. I know we're not going to be perfect because we're always going to be arguing. We're always going to be making a whole lot of noise about stuff. But we have to recognize that we, as a people, that we're becoming more exposed. Therefore, we have to make sure that we become more scholarly in what we're doing.
That's right.
And more didactic in how we bring what we know of the scriptures, which is our book, to the so-called general media. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go into the teaching today. The teaching today is based upon the feast of Purim. So let me say to everyone, Happy Purim. Now, for those of you that are not familiar with it, Purim deals with a feast where there's a celebration that happens. It's round about the 20th of this month, and the purpose behind it is that we celebrate and we give what the Bible calls portions, which is gifts. So it's the day that we give gifts to one another. The difference between our Purim versus so-called devilish Christmas is the fact that their Christmas day is one day. Purim, in fact, is 2 days. Because it is sundown one day to sundown the next day. Are you with that? Sundown one day to sundown when?
The next day.
The next day.
That's right.
What I want you to do right now, I want you to go to the book of Esther, chapter 1. We're going to begin reading from verse 1. Esther chapter 1. And we're going to begin reading at verse 1. Now I'm going to have to give you a whole lot of history so that you can get some understanding of it.
Can you spell Purim for me, sir?
I'm sorry?
Can you spell it for me, please?
Purim. Purim. All right. Let's read, if you please. Esther chapter 1 and 1. Let's read.
The book of Esther, chapter 1, verse 1. Now, it came to pass in the days of Ahasuerus,
Good.
this is Ahasuerus, which reigned from India even unto Ethiopia, over 127 provinces.
All right. So, Ahasuerus, he reigned over what?
Over 127 provinces.
So 127 provinces. All right. Now, during that period, this is the Persian king. And the Persian and Medes were in power similarly around about the same time. Are you with me so far?
Yes, sir.
So, they were the superpower. Now let's see if we can get that clear a little bit. Let's go to Daniel chapter 7 and verse 5 for a quick moment. Daniel chapter 7 and verse 5. Let's read.
The book of Daniel, chapter 7, verse 5. And behold, another beast, a second like to a bear, and it raised up itself on one side, and it had 3 ribs in the mouth of it.
Read it again.
And behold, another beast, a second like to a bear, and it raised up itself one side, and on it had 3 ribs in the mouth of it, between the teeth of it. And they said thus unto it, Arise, devour much flesh.
All right. Now, ladies and gentlemen, in the book of Daniel, it is speaking about the 4 beasts. 3 of them are revealed, or in fact 4 of them are revealed in the book of Daniel. But we are dealing primarily today with the second. The 4 beasts are, just so that you can make a note of it, are Babylon, Persian Medes, Greece, and the Roman Empire. Again, that is Babylon, Persian Medes, Greece, and the Roman Empire. Now, the reason why this is so important is because it will give you an idea as to why certain things happened the way that it happened. In verse 5 it said, And behold, another beast, second like to a bear. And it did what?
And it raised up itself on one side.
So, meaning it stood up in a position of power. It raised itself up. Then it says what?
And it had 3 ribs in its mouth of it.
And it had what?
3 ribs in the mouth of it.
So it had 3 ribs in its mouth. The 3 ribs are significant of Babylon, Lydia, and Egypt. Those are the 3 groups, three countries that it took in its mouth and held a vice on it, had them in captivity. So now that you have that, you're getting an idea as to how powerful the Persian army was. The Persian army was so powerful that at one point the king was called King of Kings. And remember that they made themselves like unto gods, because the whole earth where they went bowed to them. With this understanding, as we explain how we came into the Feast of Purim, it will help you to know that this feast is important to Israel because we are celebrating a near annihilation from one man who made it his job to destroy everything that was Israel. So when we go over to Esther chapter 1, we're going to begin reading on from verse 2. Let's read.
Esther chapter 1 verse 2. That in those days, when the king Ahasuerus sat on the throne of his kingdom, which was in Shushan, the palace.
All right. Now, so that we can get, again, some history bearing behind this, go to the book of Ezra, not Ezra, chapter 4 and verse 6. Because we're going to get an understanding of Xerxes, who reigned, and his power position. Let's read.
Ezra chapter 4 verse 6.
Read.
In the reign of Ahasuerus, in the beginning of his reign, wrote they unto him an accusation against the inhabitants of Judah and Jerusalem.
Now, what you're reading there is the beginning of Ahasuerus' reign. What you're reading in Esther, back in Ezra, you're getting an idea of his beginnings. Stay with me now, because this is very important. Now remember, he reigned so much that he covered all of India. He conquered India. And for those of you that are pretty good with geography, you'll know that if he did that, that shows how mighty his forces were. And he also conquered much of Ethiopia, that he had parts of Africa under his belt. And if you could look at it geographically, all of India, then all of Ethiopia, then the rest of the sections going all the way back to Jerusalem, you can see that this man had the world at his feet at that time. But let's read on now. Let's get into the crux of the story dealing with Esther. Let's read.
Esther,
yes, but verse 3.
This is the book of Esther, chapter 1, verse 3. In the 3rd year of his reign, he made a feast unto all his princes and his servants.
Now he said unto all his princes, which means the first people of authority. The word prince means first. That's all it means. The word prince has nothing to do with royalty. I know we've been taught that, but that's not what it has to do with. Like if a man or woman, you have a son, he's your prince. He's the first of your kind. You have a daughter, she's the princess. She's the first of your kind. So that's all it basically means when we use the term prince or princess. These are the first children of me.
Right.
My son is my prince. He's the first of me. My daughter is my princess. She's the first of me. That's what it's related to. Every man has a prince. Every man has a princess if he has daughters. Are you with me so far?
Yes.
Let's read on.
Verse 3. In the 3rd year of his reign, he made a feast unto all his princes and his servants, the power of Persia and Media, the nobles and princes of the provinces, being before him.
So they came before him to show off their exuberance, by all of the wealth that they've now collected from the tributes from all of the other nations. Read on.
Verse 4. When he showed the riches of his glorious kingdom and the honor of his excellent majesty many days.
Read.
Even 180 days.
So 180 days of celebration. That's something.
That's right.
You've got to have some money to do that. Read on.
Verse 5. And when these days were expired, the king made a feast unto all the people that were present in Shushan, the palace.
So then he made another feast for all the people. That means that the people weren't working, they had to take time off of work, and therefore you had to provide food and drinks for them. So I'm just explaining this so you understand the magnitude of and majesticness of this man's wealth.
That's right.
All right, read.
Both unto great and small, 7 days in the court of the garden of the king's palace. Verse 6. Where were white, green, blue hangings, fastened with cords of fine linen.
These are the color coordinations of the feast. Read.
And purple to silver rings, and pillars of marble. The beds were of gold and silver, upon a pavement of red, and blue, and white, and black marble. And they gave them drink in vessels of gold, the vessels being diverse one from another.
In other words, everything was different, nothing was the same, because there was splendor in everything that was put on display. Read.
And royal wine in abundance.
Royal wine means this is the wine selectively put aside only for the king.
That's right.
Read.
According to the state of the king. Verse 8. And the drinking was according to the law. None did compel. For so the king had appointed to all the officers of his house, that they should do according to every man's pleasure.
Read.
Also Vashti, the queen, made a feast for the women in the royal house, which belonged to the king Ahasuerus.
Now, the reason why she did that because of the noblemen's, their wives. They had a special get-together for them. So there were parties going on within parties. All right? All right. Now that we've got that, let's go forward.
Verse 10. On the 7th day, when the heart of the king was merry with wine, he commanded Milleneumn, Biztha, Harbona,
Good.
Bigtha, and Agatha, Zethar, and Carcas, and 7 chamberlains that served in the presence of Ahasuerus the king.
Now, these were the eunuchs who were his private chamberlains. The chamberlain, the term chamberlain is, again, old Anglo-Saxon word. It goes all the way back, meaning one who serves only royalty.
That's right.
All right? So even if I was a regular man and I had chamberlains, it's because I want them to consider me royalty. If you're with me. All right, let's go.
Verse 11. To bring Vashti the queen before the king with the crown royal, to show the people and the princess her beauty, for she was fair to look on.
So she was a beautiful woman to look at. Read.
But Queen Vashti refused to come at the king's commandment by his chamberlains. Therefore was the king very wroth, and his anger burned in him.
Now, tell me something. Was this a right thing for her to do?
No.
Well, the brothers said no. I didn't hear nothing from the sisters over here. Was she right in refusing to go before the king?
No.
Well, I'm trying to get the sisters to say something.
Okay, all right.
Sisters aren't saying nothing. I had no, she wasn't right. No. All right, now, and you know I'm going to stay on this a little bit, right? Why do you think she was wrong not to come when the king bid her to come? Why do you think?
Because
Not you, brothers.
sister, I'm sorry.
Why do you think? Because I know the brothers want to jump on this all day long, but I want to deal with the sisters. I want to be fair. Why do you think, sisters? Huh? Why? Say again? She was wrong because her husband sent for her. That's good. That's good, but nothing wrong with that. But let's take it a little bit of a step up. Because remember, this wasn't just a husband.
That's right.
This was the king. Now, bear with me and tell me if I happen to be wrong. If you lived in a land where there was a sovereign state and a king was there, and the king sent for you, the king now, and you refused to go, what do you think would happen?
That's right.
Because the king's word is final.
That's right.
But also, bear in mind that what the king has commanded for his wife to come, her example sets the stage for what? For what? For all the others to follow. She's the first lady. She's the example. She's the one that others, well, if she didn't do it, and she's the first lady, then I don't have to do it. So you can see the implication of this was vast. That's why the Most High has had that written into the scriptures here.
Right.
But let's read. Let's get back to the word. Let's read.
Esther chapter 1, verse 12. But the queen Vashti refused to come at the king's commandment by his chamberlains. Therefore was the king very wroth, and his anger burned in him.
Read.
Verse 13. Then the king said to the wise men, which knew the times, for so was the king's manner toward all that knew the law and judgment.
So now you see, this was a law. It wasn't just him this was a law. This was an action that had to be carried out because it was part of state law. Let's read. But before you read, it said in the king's manner towards all that knew the law and judgment.
That's right.
14.
And the next unto him was Karshena, Shethar,
Good.
Admatha, Tarshish, Marcina, and Mukim, Salaki, and the 7 princes of Persia and Media, which saw the king's face, and which sat the first in the kingdom.
Now he's the most powerful man in all the kingdom, with nations under him, but he cannot control his wife. All the other men are looking at him like, what's going on here? Especially if they have control over their own house.
Right.
All right, so now you're getting the implication. Read on. 15.
Verse 15. What shall we do unto...
Just read it.
Yes, sir. What shall we do unto the queen Vashti according to the law? Because she hath not performed the commandments of the king Ahasuerus by the chamberlains.
Read.
Verse 16. And Memucan answered before the king and the princes, Vashti the queen have not done wrong to the king only, but also to all the princes and to all the people that are in all the provinces of the king Ahasuerus.
Read.
Verse 17. For this deed of the queen shall come abroad unto all women, so that they shall despise their husbands in their eyes. When it shall be reported, the king Ahasuerus commanded Vashti, the queen, to be brought in before him, but she came not.
Now remember, there is a spiritual implication behind this, because remember, the church, Israel, is like a bride to Yahushua, the Son. And therefore, how Israel operates is like a woman. That when the king calls her, she is to come. But remember, this is kind of depicting a state of mind of Israel. Because when a time came when Israel should have come, Israel did not come. Israel became rebellious.
That's right.
And so we see then that something had to be done to change this mindset. But read on.
Verse 18. Likewise shall the ladies of Persia and Media say this day unto all the king's princes, which have heard of the deed of the queen.
Read.
Thus shall arise to much contempt and wrath. If it please the king, let there go a royal commandment from him, and let it be written among the laws.
So notice, it had to be now brought into the law as an addendum. Read.
Of the Persians and the Medes, that it not, Salaki, that it be not altered.
Cannot be changed once it's been said. Read.
That Vashti come no more before the king Ahasuerus, and let the king give her royal estate unto another that is better than she.
Read.
And when the king's decree, which he shall make, shall be published throughout all the empire, for it is great, all the wives shall give to their husbands honor.
What?
Honor.
Read.
Both to great and small.
Meaning whether you are in high dignitary position or in low positions. Honor should be given. Read.
And the saying pleased the king and the princes, and the king did according to the law of Milleneumn.
Good.
For he sent letters unto all the king's providences, unto every providence according to the writing thereof, and to every people after their language, that every man should bear rule in his own house.
Where?
In his own house.
Read.
And that it should be published according to the language of every people.
So every nation had to follow this law. It was a law that was sent throughout the known earth of that time. Let's go to chapter 2 and begin at verse 1. Let's read. Now we get into the meat of the story.
Esther chapter 2 verse 1. After these kings, when the wrath of King Ahasuerus was appeased, he remembered Vashti and what she had done, and what was decreed against her.
So it shows that time had elapsed at this point, that he kept himself from her. Not only did she embarrass him, but he no longer went in unto her. He closed her out and made her a thing of the past. In so doing, what he was showing was that the king, or a king, should not be trifled with by none of his subjects. Because remember, the queen is still a subject to the king. In the kingdom, we, Israel, will be a type of wife to Yahushua, a type, a symbolic type. But we are still subject to him. And we have to understand that. That's why this story is written here. Read.
Verse 2. Then said the king's servants that ministered unto him, let there be fair young virgins sought for the king, and let the king appoint officers in all the provinces of his kingdom.
Read.
That they may gather together all the fair young virgins unto Shushan.
Now the word virgin here refers to young maiden as well as the other meaning. Go on.
The palace, to the house of the women, unto the custody of Hegi, the king's chamberlain, keeper of the women.
Read.
And let their things for purification be given them. Verse 4. And let the maiden which pleaseth the king be queen instead of Vashti. And the thing pleased the king, and he did so.
Read.
Verse 5. Now in Shushan, the palace, there was a certain Jew whose name was Mordecai.
What is his name?
Was Mordecai.
Read.
The son of Jair, the son of Shemaiah, the king, the son of Kish, a Benjamite.
All right, so he's a Benjamite. All right, let's follow that closely now. Go on.
Verse 6. Who had been carried away from Jerusalem with the captivity which had been carried away with Jeconiah, king of Judah, whom Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, had carried away.
So these people were carried away from Jerusalem, and they reigned and lived in another country for many years until another king came and conquered that mighty king and took all of the slaves and captive that he had. I hope you keep that in mind. Let's go ahead.
Verse 6, who had been carried away from Jerusalem with the captivity which had been carried away with Jeconiah, king of Judah, whom Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, had carried away.
Read.
And he brought up Hadassah.
Now, Hadassah is the Jewish name for Esther. All right, so now we're getting to the crux of it, because remember, all of us, when we have been taken into slavery, your name is changed. Your name is changed. In the kingdom, when the Most High takes the nations by force,
Right.
and slavery is introduced again. Now I know some of you say, what? Slavery again? Yes. But this time there will be slaves to Israel. All of the nations, their names will be changed.
That's right.
They're not going to come to you with the names that they have. Because keeping your name is like having a certain part of freedom.
That's right.
Taking your name away from you is part of changing how you think. When your names were taken from you, that was the process of the beginning of brainwashing. Because if we take a name from you, of your tribe, and give you another name, we're making you less than who you were.
That's right.
Read.
And he brought up Hadassah, that is Esther, his uncle's daughter, for she had neither father nor mother. And the maid was fair and beautiful, whom Mordecai.
Now the word beautiful in the Hebrew means goodly. All right, so she was very, very beautiful, very fair, but she was also very goodly, beautiful. Go on.
When her father and mother were dead, took for his own daughter.
Read.
Verse 8. So it came to pass, when the king's commandment and his decree was heard, and when many maidens were gathered together unto Shushan the palace, to the custody of Haggai, that Esther was brought also unto the king's house, to the custody of Haggai, keeper of the women.
All right, so there was a eunuch that kept control over all of the maidens to ensure that no one came in unto them.
That's right.
These were the property of royalty, property of the king. Read.
Verse 9. And the maiden pleased him, and she obtained kindness of him, and he speedily gave her her things for purification, which such things are belonged to her, and 7 maidens, which were meet to be given her out of the king's house.
Now, meaning in other words, that her beauty was as such that it caused even this eunuch to have a favor with her.
That's right.
And gave her maidens that were beautiful also to complement her. I want you to get that, all right? Let's go.
And he preferred her and her maidens unto the best place of the house of the women.
Gave her the best place to stay in the palace. Read.
Verse 10. Esther had not showed her people, nor her kindred.
Now, in other words, she didn't say that she was a Jewess.
Right.
She kept that silent. Read.
For Mordecai had charged her that she should not show it. And Mordecai walked every day before the court of the women's house to know how Esther did.
Good.
And what should become of her.
Read on.
Verse 12. Now when every maid's turn was come to go into the king Ahasuerus, after that she had been 12 months according to the manner of the women.
So there was a 12-month purification that they used it to have these maidens washed, groomed, and even customized to what the king's needs were. Read.
For so were the days of their purifications accomplished, but with 6 months with oil of myrrh, and 6 months with sweet odors, and with their things for the purifying of the women.
Read.
Then thus came every maiden unto the king. Whatsoever she desired was given her to go with her out of the house of the women unto the king's house.
Read.
In the evening she went, and on the morrow she returned into the second house of the women, to the custody of Sheshagaz, the king's chamberlain, which kept the concubines. She came in unto the king no more, except the king delighted in her, and that she were called by name.
Read.
Now, when the turn of Esther, the daughter of Abihail, the uncle of Mordecai, who had taken her of his daughter, was come to go into the king, she required nothing but what Haggai, the king's chamberlain, the keeper of the women, appointed. And Esther obtained favor in the sight of all them that looked upon her.
Read.
So Esther was taken into the king Ahasuerus, into the house royal in the 10th month, which is the month of Tebeth, in the 7th year of his reign.
Read.
And the king loved Esther.
He did what?
The king loved Esther
Read.
above all the women, and she obtained grace and favor in his sight, more than all the virgins, so that he set the royal crown upon her head.
Read.
And made her queen instead of Vashti.
Continue.
Then the king made a great feast unto all his princes and his servants, even Esther's feast. And he made a release to the provinces and gave gifts according to the state of the king.
All right. Now we can stop there. Let's jump down to chapter 3. Let's begin reading there. Now we get into the tyrannicalness of the enemy who is now coming forward. Let's read.
Esther chapter 3 verse 1. After these things did King Ahasuerus promote Haman, the son of Hammedatha, the Agagite, and advanced him and set his seat above the princes that were with him.
All right. Now, in order to understand the opening clause of this, we have to visit some of the history. First of all, read it again from the top, if you please.
Yes, sir. Esther chapter 3 verse 1. After these things did King Ahasuerus promote Haman, the son of Hammedatha, the Agagite, and advanced him and set his seat above all the princes that were with him.
Now, there was a law in the land that said this: if you held any position of leadership or dignitary, all of the people had to bow before you. Everyone. They all had to bow. Whenever they saw you, they had to bow. It was a law. It was not something that you could escape. But we're going to see something here. Let's read verse 2, and then we'll come back to verse 1.
Verse 2. And all the king's servants that were in the king's gate bowed and reverenced Haman.
And reverence Haman. Right? Read.
For the king had so commanded concerning him. But Mordecai bowed not, nor did him reverence.
Now, why did he not bow? Can anyone tell me? Why did Mordecai not bow?
Because he was a Hebrew.
One at a time. Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Oh, because he was a Hebrew, he couldn't bow to any other give reverence to anyone.
Correct. He was a Hebrew. In Hebrewic law, you don't bow to no one but the Most High. Now, now tell me, ladies and gentlemen, if the queen came and you happened to be in a job that held you in a position of dignitary, and you know the rule is that you bow to the queen, what would you do? Would you bow? I see you smile. All right. Okay. One said no. The other one went just smiled. Okay. You know the rule. Would you bow?
I would expect consequences.
Say again?
I wouldn't, but I would expect consequences.
All right. For the sisters, they don't necessarily bow.
That's right.
What do? They curtsy.
That's right.
However, to curtsy
That's a bow.
is a bow.
That's right.
So I thought you would say that. So. To curtsy is still a bow because it's an act of reverence.
That's right.
So, brothers, what would you do?
I will not bow and face the consequences.
And you would face the consequences. All right.
God.
All right. Let's go back to verse 1 just for a quick minute. Go to 1 Samuel chapter 15 and 5. 1 Samuel chapter 15. And 5. All right, let's read.
The book of 1 Samuel, chapter 15, verse 5. And Saul came to a city of Amalek.
All right. Some of you may not know the story. Let's begin at verse 1 to acquaint those who are not familiar with the story. Let's read.
Samuel chapter 15, verse 1. Samuel also said unto Saul, the Lord sent me to anoint thee to be king over his people.
Read.
Over Israel. Now therefore, hearken thou unto the voice of the words of the Lord.
Read.
Verse 5.
No.
Verse
One,
2.
all the way down.
Thus saith the Lord of hosts, I remember that which Amalek did to Israel.
All right. So the Most High God remembered what Amalek did to Israel.
That's right.
He never forgot it. And so, thus said the Most High, Lord of hosts, I remember that which Amalek did to Israel. Read.
How he laid wait for him in the way, which he came up from Egypt.
Which he came up from Egypt. Now, in case you don't know who Amalek is Edom.
That's right.
This is just another version of him. Read verse 3.
Verse 3. Now go and smite Amalek and utterly destroy all that they have.
Now notice, the commandment was, go and to utterly destroy Amalek. That was the order.
Yeah.
Watch it now. Read.
And spare them not,
Spare no one. Read.
but slay both man and woman, infant and suckling, ox and sheep, camel and ass.
That was what he was meant to do.
right.
Slay everyone.
Yes.
Babies and all. Old and all. Every animal. Don't keep any of them.
I mean,
Slay them. But watch this now. Read.
And Saul gathered the people together and numbered them in Telaim,
Good.
200,000 footmen and 10,000 men of Judah.
Read.
And Saul came to the city of Amalek and laid wait in the valley.
Laid wait in the valley. Read on.
And Saul said unto the Kenites, Go, depart, get you down from among the Amalekites, lest I destroy you with them. For ye showed kindness to all the children of Israel
Read.
when they came up out of Egypt.
Read.
So the Kenites departed from among the Amalekites. And Saul smote the Amalekites from Havilah unto thou comest to shore that is over against Egypt.
Read.
And he took
Agag.
Agag, the king of the Amalekites, alive, and utterly destroyed all the people with the edge of the sword.
All right. Now, he took who? He took Agag. Was he right? Why?
they should have destroyed them.
The Most High told him to destroy everyone.
That's right.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, that's why we have to learn to be obedient. What one man does at one time puts the jeopardy of the future of the people in trouble down the road.
right.
Yes.
So when the Most High is saying to you, destroy them now, he's trying to spare you bitterness of the future. But we take it upon ourselves and say, well, you know, I've killed everybody else, I've just got the king. But watch what happens. Read on.
Verse 9. But Saul and the people spared Agag, and the best of the sheep.
And what?
And the best of the sheep.
But weren't they supposed to kill all the sheep?
That's right.
Yes.
Read.
And of the oxen.
Weren't they supposed to kill all the oxen?
Yes.
Right.
Read.
And of the fatlings.
Yes.
And the lambs. And all that was good.
Were they meant not to destroy everything that was good?
Yes.
Everything.
Read.
And would not utterly destroy them, but everything that was vile, and refused that they destroyed utterly.
All right. So they destroyed everything with this view that things that appeared good to them, they kept.
That's right.
Now, what I want you to follow is this. The name Agag or Agaganite or Ite, that the ITE at the end of any name means you are a descendant of. Wherever you see that, it means that you are a descendant of. And so when we read back in Esther chapter 3 and verse 1, read it again.
This is the book of Esther, chapter 3, verse 1. After these things did King Ahasuerus promote Haman, the son of Hammedatha, the Agagite.
The Agagite. So the Agagite, the word Agagite means Amalekite king.
That's right.
Got you.
That's what it means. It means Amalekite king. So this means that the great grandchild, or these were the great grandchildren of Esau. And as Esau's son, which is Zepho, Zepho. And we'll find that in 1 Samuel chapter 15 and 8. Go ahead and read what you got.
1 Samuel chapter 15, verse 8. And he took Agag, the king of the Amalekites, alive, and utterly destroyed all the people with the edge of the sword.
Read it one more time.
And he took Agag, the king of the Amalekites, alive, and utterly destroyed all the people with the edge of the sword.
All right. Go back.
Esther chapter 3, verse 1. After these things did King Ahasuerus promote Haman, the son of Hammedatha, the Agagite, and advanced him, and set his seat above all the princes that were with him.
Read.
And all the king's servants that were in the king's gate bowed and reverenced Haman, for the king had so commanded concerning him.
Read.
But Mordecai bowed not, nor did him reverence. Then the king's servants, which were in the king's gate, said unto Mordecai, Why transgressest thou the king's commandment?
Read.
Now it came to pass, when they spake daily unto him, and he hearkened not unto them, they told Haman to see whether Mordecai's matters would stand.
Read.
For he had told them that he was a Jew.
So every day they came to him, pestering him, bow before Haman. Bow, bow. Brother, just bow. No big deal.
That's right.
But he could not, because he also knew the history, that he would be bound before an Amalekite king. Read.
Verse 5. And when Haman saw that Mordecai bowed not, nor did him reverence, then was Haman full of wrath.
Read.
And he thought scorn to lay hands on Mordecai alone, for they had showed him the people of Mordecai. Wherefore Haman sought to destroy all the Jews that were throughout the whole kingdom of
Read.
Ahasuerus,
Read.
even the people of Mordecai. In the first month, that is the month Nisan, in the 12th year of King Assuerus, that cast Purim, that is the lot, before Haman, from day to day, and from month to month, to the 12th month, that is the month of Adar. And Haman said unto the king Assuerus, there is a certain people scattered abroad, dispersed among the people of all the provinces of thy kingdom.
Read.
And their laws are diverse from all people, neither keep they that the king's laws. Therefore it is not of the king's profit to suffer them. Verse 9. If it please the king, let it be written that they may be destroyed, and I will pay 10,000 talents of silver to the hands of those that have the charge of the business, to bring it into the king's treasuries.
All right. Now, what I want you to is hold that, just to prove that this has happened more than one occasion. This is where we're reading it with the Persian. But what I want you to do is to open your Apocrypha and go to 2 Maccabees chapter 6, and we're going to read verse 6.
6 and 6.
Correct.
In the Apocrypha, 2 Maccabees, chapter 6, verse 6. Neither was it lawful for a man to keep Sabbath days or ancient feasts, or to profess himself at all to be a Jew.
See, so even in the Jewish, in the Grecian realm of them being the conquerors at their point, they did exactly the same thing. So what we're seeing with the Persian is just the beginnings of what has taken place already and will take place again in the future. All right, let's go back and read.
Verse 10. And the king took his ring from his hand and gave it unto Haman, the son of Hammedatha, the Agagite, the Jews' enemy.
So you can see that he gave him all power at this point. Read.
And the king said unto Haman, the silver is given to thee, the people also, to do with them as it seemeth good to thee.
That's why he had power to destroy the Jews. Read on.
Then were the king's scribes called on the 13th day of the first month, and there was written according to all that Haman had commanded unto the king's lieutenants.
Read.
And to the governors that were over every province, and to the rulers of every people of every province according to the written thereof, and to every people after their language. In the name of the king Assuerus was it written, and sealed with the king's ring.
So that's every quadrant of the province, which was 127 of them, that this edict went out. Read.
And the letters were sent by post into all the king's provinces, to destroy, to kill, and to cause to perish all Jews, both young and old, the little and women, in one day, even upon the 13th day of the 12th month, which is the month Adar, and to take the spoil of them for a prey.
Read.
The king of the writing for a commandment to be given in every province was published unto all people, that they should be ready against that day. The post went out, being hastened by the king's commandment, and the decree was given in Shushan the palace.
Read.
And the king and Haman sat down to drink, but the city Shushan was perplexed.
Now we're going to go to chapter 4 and verse 1. Now I want to show you how it's important for you to study this along with other scriptures. Go ahead and read verse 1.
Esther, chapter 4, verse 1. Mordecai perceived all that was done. Mordecai rent his clothes and put on sackcloth with ashes, and went out into the midst of the city, and cried with a loud and bitter cry.
Now, during this time that he was fasting, and he was crying and he was wailing, the Most High gave him a vision. You will find that in chapter 10. We're not going to go to chapter 10 in this, But what I want you to do is open your Apocrypha and we'll read about it in the Apocrypha. When you get the page, just call out the number. It's 50 something, so page 55. All right. Now, page 55 is the book of Esther. The rest of the chapter of the book of Esther. You got that?
Yes, sir.
Everybody have it? All right. So, we're going to read verse 4, which is the left off from chapter 10 in the book of Esther in your King James. You with me so far? Gone?
Gone.
No, someone's lost. All right. So, in this is a continuing of, if you could go to Esther, the last chapter of Esther, which is chapter 10, you will see it only goes from 1 to 3, right? Now, you got that? So, 1 to 3 in chapter 10 of Esther, you are continuing it from 4 to 13 in the Apocrypha. You with me so far?
Yes.
Good. Now, the reason why I want you to get that is so that you understand how there is a correlation. Let's read, if you please.
In the Apocrypha, book of Esther, verse 4. Then Mardochus said, God hath done these things, for I remember a dream which I saw concerning these matters, and nothing thereof hath failed.
In other words, everything that was in the dream that I saw, it was fulfilled. Read.
A little fountain became a river, and there was light, and the sun, and much water. This river is Esther, whom the king married and made queen.
Read.
And the two dragons are I and Ammon, and the nations were those that were assembled to destroy the name of the Jews. And my nation is this Israel, which cried to God, and were saved. For the Lord hath saved his people, and the Lord hath delivered us from all those evils.
Read.
And God hath wrought signs and great wonders, which have not been done among the Gentiles.
Read.
Therefore hath he made two lots, one for the people of God, and the other for all the Gentiles.
Read.
And these two lots came at the hour, and time, and day of judgment before God among all nations.
Read.
So God remembered his people.
Remembered who?
Remembered his people.
Notice it's making it clear he remembered his people.
That's right.
Not everybody. I know everyone wants to say God remembers everybody. That's not what the Bible says. Check it. From Genesis to Revelation, with the Apocrypha included, you will find he only remembers his people. I know you have been taught that the scriptures is for everybody, but that's not what the scriptures say. It's only for his people. And I know people struggle with it because you've been indoctrinated into Christianity. And that Christianity is the byproduct of Roman Catholicism. Let's continue, sir.
Verse 12. So God remembered his people and justified his inheritance.
Read.
Verse 13. Therefore those days shall be unto them in the month Adar, the 14th and 15th day of the same month, with an assembly and joy and with gladness before God, according to the generations, forever among his people.
Among his people, all right? So now, ladies and gentlemen, back to Esther chapter 4. Let's read. Now, there's a vision that was given. He already knows that the Most High is with him. That's why he had the mindset to set up Esther to go in and become part of those virgins that would be selected to become queen. The Most High showed him what Haman already had in mind. he was walking by the faith of the word of the vision that he had.
That's right.
Read.
Verse 2, and came even before the king's gate, for none might enter into the king's gate clothed with sackcloth. And verse 3, and every province, whithersoever the king's commandment and his decree came, there was great mourning among the Jews.
Read.
And fasting, and weeping, and wailing, and many lay in sackcloth and ashes. So Esther's maids and her chamberlains came and told it her. Then was the queen exceedingly grieved, and she set raiment to cloth Mordecai, and to take away his sackcloth from him. But he received it not.
Now, what is sackcloth? Right, let's see if we can make sure everyone's on the same page. What is sackcloth? The sisters first. What is sackcloth? Hmm? A garment that they wear when they're mourning. Yes, but what is it? And let the sisters answer. Don't say yes to confirm what they're saying, because they're not there yet. What is sackcloth? Yes, it's a garment. Yes, but what is it? Who said that? All right. Well, what is it, ma'am? Type of material, yes. But, yeah. What type of material? Absolutely. A rough material. Now, what would you liken it to? And I know Elizabeth is going to know, since you're in my visual view. Huh? What is that, ma'am? I don't know. That's a rough cloth. Okay, good. And what would you use it for?
Yeah, like she said, they put potatoes in those like.
Good. Was that what you meant? Yeah, that's what you meant, right? All right. So Elizabeth, you knew this then, huh? So why did you say something? Okay. It was like, what did you call it? What? Burlap. Am I pronouncing that right? Burlap. The Benjamites call it crocus bag. It's a rough material. Go ahead, ma'am. You've got the dictionary. Let's hear it.
Sackcloth, a coarse cloth, dark in color, usually made of goat's hair. It was worn by mourners on the gift of scriptures, often by prophets and by captives.
Good. So it's a rough material. It's normally the material that they use to put potatoes in and all those things. Very itchy. All right. Now that we've got that, you'll see the discomfort that Mordecai was in. Continue, sir.
Esther chapter 4 verse 5. Then called Esther for Hatak.
No, going from verse 6. Go.
Verse 6. So Hatak went forth to Mordecai unto the street of the city, which was before the king's gate. And Mordecai told him of all that had happened unto him.
Read.
And of the sum of the money that Haman had promised to pay to the king's treasuries for the Jews, to destroy them. Also he gave him the copy of the writing of the decree that was given at Shushan to destroy them, to show it unto Esther, and to declare it unto her, and to charge her that she should go in unto the king.
Read.
To make supplication unto him, and to make request before him for her people.
Read.
And Hatak came and told Esther the words of Mordecai. Again Esther spake to Hatak, and gave him commandment unto Mordecai. All the king's servants and the people of the king's provinces do know that whosoever, whether man nor woman, shall come unto the king into the inner court, who is not called there is one law of his to put him to death.
All right, let's read.
Except such to whom the king shall hold out the golden scepter, that he may live. But I have not been called to come in unto the king these 30 days.
Read.
And they told to Mordecai Esther's words. Then Mordecai commanded to answer Esther, think not with thyself that thou shalt escape in the king's house.
In other words, not because you're the queen, think that you're going to get away from this. Read.
More than all the Jews. For if thou altogether holdest thy peace at this time, then shall their enlargement and deliverance arise to the Jews from another's place. But thou in thy father's house shall be destroyed. And who knoweth whether thou art come to the kingdom for such a time as this?
Whether you've come to the kingdom for such a time as this. Let's go to chapter 7. Because of time, we're going to jump ahead. I know it's a lot of reading, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, but we have to read it to get the crux of the story. So do excuse that this week. Normally I'll be going through some precepts, and I will pull out some precepts in a moment, but I just want you to get the crux of the story. Let's go.
Esther chapter 7 verse 1. So the king and Haman came to banquet with Esther the queen. And the king said again unto Esther on the second day at the banquet of wine, what is thy petition, Queen Esther? And it shall be granted thee. And what is thy request? And it shall be performed, even to the half of the kingdom.
Read.
Then Esther the queen answered and said, if I have found favor in thy sight, O king, and if it please the king, let my life be given at my petition, and my people at my request.
Read.
For we are sold, and I and my people to be destroyed, to be slain, and to perish. But we have been sold for bondmen and bondwomen.
Now, is that anything new to us?
No, sir.
That's what's been happening throughout all of our history. Go on.
And I had held my tongue, although the enemy could not countervail the king's damage. Then the king Ahasuerus answered and said unto Esther the queen, who is he, and where is he that durst perfume in his heart to do so? Verse 6, and Esther said, the adversary and enemy is this wicked Haman.
Here we go.
Then Haman was afraid before the king and the queen.
Read.
And the king, arising from the banquet of wine, in his wrath went into the palace garden. And Haman stood up to make request for his life to Esther the queen.
Now he's going to beg the very ones that he hates. Read.
For he saw that there was evil determined against him by the king. Then the king returned out of the palace garden into the place of the banquet of wine. And Haman was fallen upon the bed.
What?
Haman was fallen upon the bed whereon Esther was. Then said the
now,
king.
do you think that was a righteous thing to do?
No.
All right, read on.
Then said the king, will he force the queen also before me in the house? As the word went out of the king's mouth, they covered Haman's face. And Harbona, one of the chamberlains.
All right, stop there before we go any further. Let's go to Psalms 9 and 16. Psalms chapter 9, and let's read 16. Go ahead.
This is the book of Psalms, chapter 9, verse 16. The Lord is known by the judgment which he executeth. The wicked is snared in the work of his own hands.
Read that again.
The Lord is known by the judgment which he executeth. The wicked is snared in the work of his own hands.
In his own hand, that's what happened to Haman. You can go on.
Higgaiah, Selah.
Read.
Verse 17. The wicked shall be turned into hell, and all the nations that forget God.
Read.
For the needy shall not always be forgotten. The expectation of the poor shall not perish forever.
Forever. All right. Hold that, go to Acts chapter 2 and 25, and we'll come back and read that again.
Acts chapter 2, verse 25. For David speaketh concerning him, I foresaw the Lord always before my face, for he is on my right hand, that I should not be moved.
That I should what?
That I should not be moved.
Should not be moved. Read it one more time, please.
Acts chapter 2, verse 25. For God speaketh concerning him, I foresaw the Lord always before my face, for he is on my right hand, that I should not be moved.
Read.
Therefore did my heart rejoice, and my tongue was glad. Moreover, also my flesh shall rest in hope.
Read.
Because thou wilt not leave my soul in hell.
In a condition, read.
Neither wilt thou suffer thy Holy One to see corruption.
Read.
Thou hast made known to me the ways of life. Thou shalt make me full of joy with thy countenance.
With thy countenance. All right, let's go back to Psalms. Yes. Let's read 17 and 18.
Psalms chapter 9, verse 17. The wicked shall be turned unto hell, and all nations that forget God. For the needy shall not always be forgotten. The expectation of the poor shall not perish forever.
All right, let's go back. Let's read Esther.
Esther 7.
7 and 9.
Yes, sir. Esther chapter 7, verse 9. And Harbona, one of the chamberlains, said before the king, Behold also the gallows 50 cubits high, which Haman had made for Malachi, who had spoken good before the king, standeth in the house of Haman. Then the king said, Hang him thereon.
All right, let's go to chapter 8 and 1.
Esther chapter 8, verse 1. And on that day did the king Ahasuerus give the house of Haman, the Jews' enemy, unto Esther the queen. And Mordecai came before the king of Esther, had told what he was unto her. And the king took off his ring, which he had taken from Haman, and gave it unto Mordecai. And Esther set Mordecai over the house of Haman.
Read.
And Esther spake again before the king, and fell down at his feet, and besought him with tears to put away the mischief of Haman,
Read.
the Agagite, and his device that he had devised against the Jews. Then the king held out the golden scepter towards Esther. So Esther arose and stood before the king, and said, If it please the king, and if it have found favor in his sight, and the thing seem right before the king, and I be pleasing in his eyes, let it be written to reverse the letters devised by Haman.
To do what?
To reverse, Salaki, let it be written to reverse the letters devised by Haman,
Read.
the son of Hammedatha, the Agagite, which he wrote to destroy the Jews, which are in all the king's provinces.
Read.
For how can I endure to see the evil that shall come unto my people? Or how can I endure to see the destruction of my kindred? Then the king Ahasuerus said unto Esther, the queen of and to Mordecai, the Jew, Behold, I have given Esther the house of Haman, and him that have hanged upon the gallows, because he laid his hand upon the Jews.
All right, from there, let's go to chapter 9. Let's read verse 23.
Esther chapter 9, verse 23. And the Jews undertook to do as they had begun, and as Mordecai had written unto them, because Haman, the son of Hammedatha, the Agagite, the enemy of all the Jews, had devised against the Jews to destroy him, and had cast Pur, that is, the lot, to consume them and to destroy them. But when Esther came before the king, he commanded by the letters that his wicked device, which he devised against the Jews, should return upon his own head, and that he had his sons should be hanged on the gallows.
Now remember, why was his sons and his wife and his daughters killed with him?
Because they
was
were
the law.
all part of the plot to destroy the
No, keep us from coming
no.
back.
Keep coming back.
Let's go. Sisters, go ahead.
To get rid of the seeds of the animal.
Yes.
Because it's always the seed. If you leave one of the persons, then they have the ability to raise up that thought in another generation. And it keeps on going on. So you have to take out the entire bloodline. And by the way, that's the tradition in the scriptures. That's why, notice, when they go into the truth, the scripture said, me and my house. When they do something wrong, then me and my house, we're going to be destroyed. So the whole purpose is to get rid of the element that can come back later on and bring trouble. All right, continue, sir.
Verse 24, because Haman, the son of Hammedatha, the Agagite, the enemy of all the Jews, had devised against the Jews to destroy them, and had cast Pur, that is the lot, to consume them and to destroy them.
Read.
But when Esther came before the king, he commanded by letters that his wicked device, which he devised against the Jews, should return upon his own head.
Read.
And that he and his sons should be hanged in the gallows.
Read.
Wherefore they called these days Purim, after the name of Pur. Therefore, for all the words of this letter, and of that which they had seen concerning this matter, and which had come unto them,
Read.
the Jews ordained and took upon them, and upon their seed, and upon all such as joined themselves unto them, so as it should not fail, that they would keep their 2 days according to their writing.
How many days?
2 days according unto their writing.
Sunset one day to sunset the next. Go on.
And according to their appointed time every year.
Read.
And that these days should be remembered and kept throughout every generation.
Some generation.
Every generation.
So it's something that we celebrate throughout all generations. Read.
Every family, every providence, and every city, and that these days of Purim should not fail from among the Jews, nor the memorial of them perish from their seed.
Jump back to 22.
Esther chapter 9, verse 22. As the days there wherein the Jews rested from their enemies, and the month which was turned unto them from sorrow to joy, and from mourning unto a good day, that they should make them days of feasting and joy, and of sending portions one unto another, and gifts to the poor.
All right. See that?
Yes, sir.
All right. So that's basically the abridged version of the Feast of Purim. Now, let's give you just 2 more scriptures, and then I'm finished. But just 2 more. Let's go to 1 Corinthians chapter 5 and verse 7 to kind of seal it as to what Yahushua, his involvement in this is. 1 Corinthians chapter 5, verse 7. I'm going to ask you a question, so be on your double watch.
The book of 1 Corinthians, chapter 5, verse 7. Purge out, therefore, the old leaven, that ye may be a new lump, as ye are unleavened. For even Christ, our Passover, is sanctified for us.
Read.
Therefore, let us keep the feast.
Keep what?
Let us keep the feast,
Read.
not with old leaven,
Not with old leaven. Read.
neither with the leaven of malice
And not with the leaven of hatred.
and wickedness,
Read.
but with the unleavened bread of sincerity and truth.
Sincerity and truth. Luke 1:68.
This is the book of Luke, chapter 1, verse 68. Blessed be the Lord God of Israel, for he hath visited and redeemed his people, and has raised up a horn of salvation for his in the house of his servant David, as he spake by the mouth of his holy prophets, which have been since the world began.
Read.
That we should be saved from our enemies and from the hand of all that hate us, to perform the mercy promised to our fathers, and to remember his holy covenant, the oath which he sware to our father Abraham,
Read.
that he would grant unto us that we being delivered out of the hand of our enemies might serve him without fear, in holiness and righteousness before him all the days of our life.
All the days of our life. Stop there. All right. So is this a feast that we only do once in a while?
No.
It's one that we do unto all generations.
That's right.
Gone?
God.
All right. So, any questions from anyone before we close out this section? Did you understand it okay? Did you get it though?
Yes.
All right. What we're going to do, we're going to hand out some flyers so that you'll have some directions for the feasts that are to come, and you may be able to kind of work with that. Unless there's any questions online, all right. To all of our people who are online, I want to again wish you a happy Purim that's coming, and enjoy the Sabbath, and we look forward to seeing you again. Shabbat Shalom.